Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Rustam, and I'm recording another video lecture for BS English 6th semester students who are studying Psycholinguistics course at Government Degree College, Haveliya. But this video can be, utilized and benefited by those students who study in different colleges across country, and those who have got this lecture series, I mean psycholinguistics. There are some theories of second language learning, and as you can see on the screen, that these theories are behaviorism, mentalism, interactionism, Christian's monitor model, which actually consists of 5 hypotheses. Then we have Schumann's acculturation theory and cognitivism theory, and few other theories are also there, like autonomous theory. But at BS 6 semester level, BS level, usually we don't go into detail about all these stories. Now, before I proceed further, I would like to make here a request that if while watching you can't see a clear screen, so you are requested to go to the setting buttons on the YouTube video, and enhance the quality of the video. You can raise the quality to higher pixels, 720 and etc. This way your screen will be clear and it will not be blurred. And if you are visiting my channel for the first time, so you are requested to subscribe the channel. The channel name is Rustam's Way of Learning English, and also press the bell icon. Now, this lecture which you see on the screen is based upon chapter number 10 of this book, a very important book known as Theories in SLA and Introduction. Okay, so this is actually a compilation. Okay, this book has been edited by Van Patten and Jessica Williams. They are one of the authors. They both have contributed to this volume, but this is not entirely their own write-up. So it is a collection of essays by different specialists in the field of second language learning or acquisition. So as you can see here, the word SLA. So theories in SLA, second language acquisition. Usually we use the term second language learning, okay, and the word acquisition is used with L1, or students or learners mother tongue. L1, the first language. We say first language is acquired. So first language is acquired through acquisition process, and second language is usually learned. But in modern terminology, both these terms are used synonymously. Otherwise there is a basic difference. When you get a language without any conscious effort, the way children learn their first language, they never demand it, but just they receive input from the siblings, from parents, from the people in the locality, in the surroundings, in the media, in the environment, and this input triggers their innate knowledge of language, and thus they acquire it. But when we talk about second language, okay, once we have learned our mother tongue, so second language means that now it's a formal system. We learn it through grammar in a formal system, that in a school or college. So this second language is known as learning, second language learning. However, at this stage you can use both the terms synonymously. Now, what are the constructs of this theory? So this theory has got these 4 constructs: input, interaction, feedback, and output. And this theory counts for learning through the learner's exposure to target language, production of language, and feedback on that production. In the ensuing slides, I'll talk about all these very important constructs, and but before I proceed further, let's talk a little bit about these constructs. So what is input? Input is very important in all the theories, be it innateness theory, be it behaviorism theory, or Dr. Stephen Christian's model, this monitor model theory, or this theory we are just talking about, interactionism theory. Input is very much important. Unless you receive input in the form of listening or reading, you will never be able to produce or to give output. So what is input? Input refers to the language that a learner is exposed to, okay, that is from reading or listening. You must know that what is input. Input means the language which you are exposed to in the form of listening or reading, and interaction mean the it refers to the conversations that learners participate in. So this theory says that you will learn a language when you participate in conversations, in social interactions. Okay, and what is output? Output means that spoken or written language which learners produce. If they are reader, if they are receiving reading input, they will write a very good language, and if they are receiving lot of input in the form of listening, so they will be able to produce it. But how all this language will be developed and produced by the learners? In a interaction manner. So I'm going to explain types of interaction. So there can be three types of interaction between people, interaction between persons and machines, particularly computer, like interaction on social media, computer assisted language learning, all this. And third one is intrapersonal. Sometimes you think inside, you think and contemplate things. So something cognitive process or thinking process goes on inside your mind. So this is also a kind of interaction, your interaction with yourself. But we are particularly, this theory particularly talks about first type of interaction. Okay, interaction between people. So here if you are a language learner, let's say you are learning English, so your interaction with native speaker is very important. Okay, and if you don't have native speaker, then someone competent non-native speaker versus learner, that is your teacher in the class. Usually they are non-natives, but they have higher level of language than their learners. So a learner must be exposed to high competent non-native speaker or native speaker. And third one is when learners talk to learners. I mean, in the classroom, students talk to each other, they talk to their teacher, a teacher talks to them. So this interaction is very important. Unless this interaction is there, so language development not take place according to this interactionist theory. Okay, let me proceed further. And as I said at the outset, that this video lecture is based upon chapter number 10 of the document which I sent to you through email. I'm talking to BS6 Mr. students studying at GDC Havelia. So the soft copy or PDF file has already been uploaded to WhatsApp, and it has also been emailed to you. So you are tasked to go through that. Hopefully you already have gone through that. Now you are listening to this lecture. After listening to this lecture, you are requested to again go through the PDF document, and then we will be having online WhatsApp discussion on it. Okay, now I am going to present a bulleted summary of that document, and in between I'll be talking about different things. Okay, language learning is stimulated by communicative pressure. So interaction, when you are interacting with someone and you are communicating with someone, so if you are learner, so during the communication, you see you want to exchange some information. There is a information gap. Someone is asking you something, maybe your teacher, maybe someone who is a very competent user of language, and who is at a higher level of competence than you, and you are conversing and having interaction with him or her. So while interacting, you have to continue the conversation. So there is a pressure upon you, you want to carry on communication. So during this communicative process, you will be producing language. Okay, you will be giving output. This is a very important point in this theory. And interaction input also, already earlier I mentioned that it refers to language that a learner is exposed to. Another bullet point is that input is essential component for learning because it provides the crucial evidence from which learners can form linguistic hypotheses. This demands detailed like when a child receives input. Let's talk about first language acquisition. So already, according to Noam Chomsky theory, there is a ingrained or genetically print out inside the mind. So learner knows that there are categories, or there are principles, universal principles, like there must be a head and there must be a complement inside the mind. Okay, so when the input is received, so the learner makes an hypothesis. Okay, it says that it tallies the coming sentence with the innate structure. So there the learner makes hypotheses, and if the language received is according to the language available in the deep structure in the universal grammar, so the hypothesis becomes true. And if the input given to the learner doesn't tally with the language at the deep level in the mind, so the hypothesis is rejected. Okay, so input is very much important. Let me move forward. Now, interactionist theory, I'm sharing with you bullet summary of chapter 10. So, language addressed to learners differs in interesting ways from the language addressed to native speakers or fluent second language speakers. How it is different? Because language addressed to learners is called modified input. Okay, and why do we modify this input? I'm going to explain that it makes the language comprehensible. So these are very important terms. So comprehensible input means that if you are talking to a learner and your language is too difficult to understand, so learner will never catch the phrases, never catch the sentences. So you need to make your input or the language palatable, so that it should be at least at the level of the learner. Dr. Stephen Krashen uses important term, like if you can see on the screen, this, that is, the language addressed to the learner should be a little bit higher than the existing language knowledge. This shows internal language or the language already in the mind of the learner. And if your language should be a little bit higher than the cognitive level of the learner. If it is too higher, that is, if it is I plus 2, so learner will not understand it. And if it is I minus 1, again it will be boring for the learner. So your input should be understandable and comprehensible. So what happens that whenever we are talking to someone who is learning, even you might have seen, if you are a teacher, or even if you whenever you talk to babies, or whenever we talk to students studying in grade 6, 7 and 8, so we as a fluent language user, what do? We make our language very simplified. Okay, we modify our structures. So this modification makes the language comprehensible for the language learner. So this modification happens during interaction. So interactionist theory says that language is developed during conversations and interactions. So if you want learners to learn a foreign language or a second language, you must give them a lot of opportunities in which they are exposed to target language. So this is another important point taken from that chapter. Okay, let me proceed further. So here is an example of modified language. Okay, modified language. So as I have mentioned here, making language understandable. Modification means you are simplifying the target language for the learner. So here is an example that target language is English. That is, there are learners who are learning English, and class is kindergarten. Okay, they are kindergartens, but in this kindergarten class, see, students, they are from multiple backgrounds. There are English native speakers, but they are kids. Okay, they are they are children. Okay, but they are native speakers, and they are also learning English. But there are also Urdu speakers in the class, there are Arabic speakers, and there are Japanese speakers as well. So this is a multi-ethnic class. And now the teacher is teaching them some language, and now the teacher is going to modify the language for these speakers, particularly Urdu speakers and Arabic speakers and Japanese speakers. See, teacher modifies input for Arabic and Urdu speakers so that they can understand target language. Now see the example. Now she says to us, a native speaker of English, she says, now Johnny, you have to make a great big pointed hat. You have to make a big pointed hat. You can see. So this is a direct instruction given to native speaker. But now non-native speakers, they need this language to be modified and simplified, otherwise they won't understand and develop their own language. So teacher says to an intermediate level native speaker of Urdu, she says, no, her hat is big pointed. So it means they are making hats. So see, the language has been simplified for Urdu speaker. Now compare this language with this one. This is addressed to native speaker. Although this native speaker is also a learner and kid, but it is not as simplified as is this one. Okay, no, her hat is big pointed. Now for Arabic learner, this is further simplified. See hat, hat is big, big and tall. So the teacher is instructing an Arabic learner that he or she should make a big hat. Now here again modification for Japanese learner. Teacher says to this Japanese, big, big hat. So what is happening? There is an interaction between learners. Okay, one is native speaker and competent language user, and others are learners. And the language is being simplified for each learner, modified and simplified. Okay ji. Now let's another purpose is when you are a very competent speaker in an interaction. So it is not necessary that always you modify the language. You may elaborate the language. Okay, and this will make the language understandable. Let me explain. There are non-native speakers indicates a possible lack of understanding. There is an interaction between a native speaker and a non-native speaker. Okay, they both are interacting with each other. Now non-native speaker, okay, the person who is learning, let's say English, he does not understand and he uses the word pardon me. So what does the native speaker do? The native speaker replies by elaborating on her original comment about nitrates. Okay, see, here is a non-native speaker. Non-native speaker says there has been a lot of talk lately about additives and preservatives in food. In which ways has this changed your eating habits? This is a question from a non-native speaker. Okay, so native speaker says, I try to stay away from nitrates. Now non-native speaker doesn't understand. He says, pardon me. Now see the elaboration. Okay, the native speaker is going to elaborate, and from nitrates like lunch meats, sort of thing, I don't eat those. So explanation has been offered. So this happens in interaction. Unless you interact, unless you have a communicative pressure, so now learning is taking place and language is being developed. Now let's talk about interaction. What is interaction? Conversations that learners participate in. Okay, they are known as interaction. So negative evidence refers to the information that learners receive concerning the incorrectness of their own utterances. Now in interactions, if you are a learner, you are talking to some competent user of a language, definitely you will be making mistakes and errors. So your interlocutor, your senior, the participant who is competent in this interaction, he or she will give you negative evidence. Negative evidence means that he or she is going to indicate that there are incorrections, there are flaws in your language. Okay, so this is known as negative evidence. Okay, now negative evidence is given through interactional feedback that occurs following problematic utterances. It means that you as a learner make utterances which are problematic, which contain errors. So your interlocutors, the proficient language user, the person who is senior to you, he or she will provide you feedback. This feedback is known as negative evidence or negative feedback. So negative feedback means he or she is going to point out your errors, and in response to that you are going to produce or you are going to give a very modified output. So this way your language will be developed. This is how people learn second language. So it's a second language learning theory, Interactionism. So conversation that learners participate in. Now negative evidence refers to the information that learners receive concerning this. I think I have already covered. Let me take you to the here important point. Negative evidence or feedback can be given overtly or covertly. So your competent user, your partner, suppose you are language learner, you are learning English, which is a second language for you or a foreign language for you. You are having a chat or discourse, or you are having a conversation or an interaction with a native speaker, and let's say you make mistakes, you commit errors in your output. So your interlocutor, your senior, is going to either correct you overtly, just explicitly pointing out that this is an error, or it may be done implicitly, in hiding mode. So now let's talk about the third construct known as output. This is known as language production. Okay. So language will not be developed if the learner does not have sufficient opportunities for language use. And this is the case with our students. We keep teaching them grammar. Okay. Usually I don't have much approval for grammar. I don't like the traditional grammar, pedagogical grammar. So we keep teaching them nouns, pronouns, etc. It's a one way traffic. The language is being poured into their minds, but they are never offered any opportunity to use language. That's why in my pedagogy, I always make students speak. I always give them writing tasks. I always give them speaking tasks. I want them to come on stage and speak to the audience. So unless you are offered role plays, unless you are offered debates, table talks, presentations in which there are question answer session, lot of interaction, so definitely language will not be developed. So I didn't earlier on, at the outset of my linguistic career, I didn't know of this theory, about this theory, interactionist theory, but I just by my intuition, I knew that language would be developed once learners would be put into interactionist mode, that is interactions. So our language is not developed because we are not offered sufficient opportunities for language use. Okay. So learners produce language under communicative pressure. If there is no communicative pressure, okay, if let's say you are having a chat or conversation with someone and you both are talking, you are at railway station, you are at the airport, so you both are talking to each other. So if you are trying to speak English and there will be communication gap if you don't respond, so under the pressure of communication you start producing language. So it means that in interactions we are forced to speak. As you can see here, that learner says, what happened for the boat, and native speaker says, what? See the communicative pressure. And learner says, what is wrong with the boat? Now even the learner is modifying the language because he wants to carry on the conversation. So this is an interaction. The interaction forces the learner to modify the language. So language is getting developed. Here is an explanation. See, after producing an initially problematic utterance, okay, what happened for the board, okay, and receiving feedback about its lack of comprehensibility in the form of a clarification request. Here is the clarification request from native speaker. He says, what? Because there is no comprehensibility, there is no understandability. So what happens now? And non-native speaker, as you can see here, non-native speaker appears to realize that his utterance was not understood. So what happens? Pushed to reformulate his initial utterance in order to facilitate native speakers' understanding, he modifies his linguistic output. You see, here is the modified output. He says, what's wrong with the boat? Initially he asked what happened for the boat, but native speaker said that he can't understand it, so the learner has modified it. So this modification takes place in interaction. So this theory says that if you want to learn a second language, you need to be put into interactionist mode environment. Okay. Feedback. Now what is feedback? Feedback can be explicit, okay, and it can be explicit. Feedback means corrections and meta-linguistic explanation, like your facial expressions, your body language, etc. You can say, no, it is incorrect, okay. But there can be implicit forms of feedback, okay, like learner, you don't tell the learner that there is something lacking, you just use confirmation checks, like, is this what you mean? You can say clarification request, what did you say? Comprehension checks, like, did you understand? And recast, you may use another phrase in order to indicate the error. Now implicit feedback, confirmation check, see a situation. So here is a non-native speaker, okay, and he or she says there has a basin of flowers on the bookshelf. Now the word basin has been used incorrectly, okay. Now what does the native speaker say? Native speaker doesn't correct, he says a basin. Non-native speaker say base. And now see, native speaker confirmation using confirmation check says a base with rising intonation, and non-native speaker says a base. Non-native speaker says oh a vase, and non-native speaker says vase. So actually there was a word vase. He wanted to say there is a vase of flowers on the bookshelf. And see, native speaker didn't correct just at the beginning or in the beginning. He or she kept on using confirmation checked. So this is known as, this is a negative feedback, this is a negative evidence. It means that there is some error in your correction, your output, okay, and now you need to correct it. But the feedback or the negative evidence was provided using implicit mode or indirect mode known as confirmation check. Now feedback can be provided with the help of recast. See the example. One student says, why did you fell down? See the incorrect form, fell. So after this operator did, we use first form. Now teacher says, why did you fall down? Why did you fall down? And student says, fall down, yes. So this is known as recast. So you see, I just wanted to read out what should I say, selected portions of chapter 10 of this very important book. Let me take you to the first slide. So now this document is with you, so you can read chapter 10 of this book known as Theories in Second Language and Introduction, Second Language Acquisition. So this is edited by Van Patten and Jessica Williams. So you are requested to write down its summary in bulleted form. So now you should be able to talk about this theory. This theory talks about input, then interaction, and then feedback, and then output. This theory says language learning takes place when learner is put into an interactionist mode. That is, interactions, lot of interaction should be given. The learner should be exposed to the target language in the form of interactions or conversations. Hope you have got an idea. I'll further talk about this theory, but I think I wanted you to get warmed up to this topic, that earlier you learnt about behaviorism, and then you learn about mentalism, that is innateness theory, and now you have been introduced to interactionism, that is interactionist theory says that you need a lot of interaction, and this interaction can be in the form of computer, that usually I use lot of computer, I keep recording things, I keep interacting with people on social media, and I keep creating podcasting and screencasting things. So or it can be an interaction between people. So you need to have lot of interaction, but your interaction should be with someone who is more proficient language user than you, okay. And if you are at the same page with someone, then you won't have an opportunity to develop your language. So in order to have your language developed, you need to be interacting with native speaker of that language, or you should be talking to someone who is more proficient user than you, okay. And this way you will have lot of opportunities to modify, because the interlocutor, the person who is a competent user of language, will be providing you feedback, okay. He or she will be providing negative evidence whenever you make a mistake, and he or she will be correcting you explicitly or implicitly, and definitely your language will be developed. Thank you very much for listening to this very important audio and kind of screencast. Thank you very much.